that usually comes. We don't usually get too many more after this, so let's go ahead and get started. Just wanted to thank everybody for coming to the Windows work group meeting. I hope everybody's well and healthy. Oh, nice. Thanks for joining, Damon. We're just getting started. I'm going to share my screen so y'all can see the agenda I'm working off of. I'm adding Damon to the list. All the way from down under. So I just wanted to talk about the upcoming point release. We had a tag for it on Friday, and we did all our builds, and we had a few issues that we found. So we're hoping to get a new tag out. Were you in the meeting today, Chad? Or are they talking about today? I heard talking about yesterday and
the meeting I was just in.
They talk about the dot release.
Yeah, we talked about the dot release and what our plans were on it. And we're stirring our reps and things up here. Hopefully we're making some good movement. Like we got the Salt API regression in, so that's good.
So they're trying to tag today? Thinking tomorrow, or what are they looking at?
They may put it off a little bit here. There was one other thing that came up that one of our customers was complaining about with a asynchronous stack trace that we're getting with the salt loader. I don't know much detail about it. That's all I heard.
Okay. And did they get the testing issues with CentOS fixed?
Yeah, the CentOS ones have been fixed for a while now.
Okay. Okay, so maybe Wednesday. Maybe, anyway, we're still working on the .1 release. It was supposed to be tagged last week and come out this week, but now it looks like that's being delayed just a little bit. So I wanted to talk about one of the things we had discussed last meeting was removing KB 2999226 from the Windows installer. That KB, for whoever might not know, was a Universal C Runtimes patch. And we decided that it probably wasn't good to be patching Windows from an installer. That if sysadmin wants his box patched, he needs to take care of that. And so we were just going to remove that and document it. But what I ended up doing was I took a Python installation, a Python installer, and I ran it on a system that was missing that KB. And it started, like the Python started. So I'm like, well, what happens here? So I went and looked, and they actually dump all the UCRT runtime DLLs into the root of the Python directory if it's missing those on the system. So they don't patch the system, but they bundle those DLLs and just dump them on the root of Python. So I'm like, okay, if that's what Python does, then that's what we'll do. So our workaround for this, it basically behaves the same way, but we're not patching the system, but Salt will still run on a system that doesn't have the UCRT library updates, because we are now dumping those in the same directory as the Python executable, so they use them, so they're available to it. So that means that we didn't need to document the code here. And I don't remember what that request Python add docs is. Does anybody remember what we added? We didn't make assignments last time. I totally should have made assignments for people, but.
So with that, are you going to follow the same philosophy? Is that only you put those C libraries in when it's required on the platform?
Yeah, so the nullsoft installer, the exe installer, will test for that patch, and if it finds it, then it works like it did before the patch is missing, then it will just dump those DLLs in the same directory as the Python binary.
Yeah, okay. But for that version of the OS.
Yeah, it only affects anything 8, I think 2012 R2 and lower, or 8.1 and lower.
Okay. So it won't do it for newer stuff. Yeah. Okay.
No, not at all. And if the system's been patched, it won't affect it either. And honestly, I didn't test what happens if you patch the system after. I mean, I imagine it would still use the ones. I think there's an order. It'll check in certain locations first, and I can't remember if it looks in the system directory first or if it looks in the root of the.
I would have thought it would use. I would have thought it'd use the one you supplied if someone patched it afterwards.
So it looks in the root of the binary first, and if it doesn't find it there, then it goes out to the system.
System, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can't remember the order.
I mean, it'd be crazy to do it. It'd be crazy to do it the other way anyway.
Yeah. Don't know what's out there. Okay. Well, just want to give an update on that. As so far, we have not patched the MSI installer yet to behave the same way. So the way we're doing it with the Nullsoft installer is that I put the 2 zip files up on repo.saltstack.com under the dependencies. And there is a UCRT zip. This is the 64-bit one. And then there's a an x86 under the 32. And it bundles those in the exe, in the installer, and if it detects the system needs it, it unzips those, and those just contain a whole bunch of DLLs that the system needs. Here, I'll just download it so you can see what's in it. So these are all the DLLs that get dumped in that directory. So if you see those, you know that that's just the UCRT libraries. And if the failure before was you would see one of these that it couldn't load. I don't remember which one. You couldn't load one of these, and it would say Python couldn't start because it couldn't find one of these
Shane,
libraries.
How do you detect whether the KB is installed or whether you need to dump?
Yeah, let's see. So it checks by version first. Let's see. Oh, it uses WMIC, and it looks for that hotfix.
Oh, I see.
So it looks for anything lower than Windows 10. And if it's not Windows 10 or newer, then it goes and uses WMIC to check for the hotfix. If it finds it, then you're good. And otherwise, it installs it.
Which means currently it installs, and in the future it should just copy the DLLs. Okay.
And I actually don't think that's in the 3001. I think, did that make it into 3001? I can't remember if this is in the 3001 release. For some reason, I think it's going to be in the dot release. It didn't get merged before we tagged 3001. So the .1 release will work this way.
Okay.
And I don't think you were doing any kind of patching on the MSI for this, right?
No, but but I start to dislike the merge modules. So instead of doing merge modules, copying the DLLs in the folder, what you're doing would be what I would appreciate, or I would welcome that checking whether the runtime is needed or the KB is needed, and then putting DLLs into the root directory or the exe directory. So I think that's a good way to do. Only that I currently wouldn't know how to execute that WMIC command or where to put it and.
Okay, so this isn't VC Redist. This isn't the VC Redist. This is different. This is the Universal C runtimes. It's an actual Windows system update. It's not just some redistributables. And,
yeah, I understand.
But you want to handle the VC Redist the same way instead of bundling the
Yes.
merge module?
Well, no, I would say.
I think we did that before, and we removed it because there were some issues. Like I had to go back to using the VC Redist. I used to put them in it. I
cannot use the VC Redist. So there are these merge modules, which is currently working. This UCRT is not handled, and when you find, yeah, I'm not sure when I find time to try that. And to detect the hotfix ID, or in fact, I would first start to replace the runtime.
Well, we do some VC Redist checking here too. So this is how we check for the VC Redist.
Oh yeah.
I think it just looks for. Well, I'm calling another function here, so.
Yeah. I cannot install the VC Redist, but I could copy your detection code, and whether when the VC Redist is not installed, instead of using merge modules, copying it to the DLL. So by doing that, you could profit from the second part. The check, then you could add another check and copy the DLLs to the directory. We would do the same.
So here's the code that we use to detect the VC Redist. It loads that. It gets that GUID. You saw that code up above where it gets the GUID. And then it does a system call to the MSI API.
Yeah.
That function there, and passes it the GUID. And if it finds it, then it's installed. Otherwise, it's not. And so.
Yeah. Then this would be a very easy test to do, because of course an MSI can query then even easier the product state of something. So all I need is these two GUIDs, which I can find in the NSI. Good.
The nullsoft. Yep.
In the nullsoft. Then, yeah, but I will do this with a very low priority, because I don't need the C runtime. The C runtime is only used for people who need to compile C on the minion. I do not have such a requirement.
Well, Python won't even start without the universal C runtimes.
On the old systems.
On an old system.
Which is not my requirement.
You don't have old systems. Yep.
The MSI thing's a new thing. It doesn't have to go and support old stuff.
No, and I can't remember if we put out that this is beta. Try it out, see if you like it. Did we even put that out, or did I just build them and put it up there, and now we have to support it? No, that may be what happened. So I can't remember ever writing any docs to the contrary. That makes me want to look here. Yeah, we're still only linking to the exe, so. I wonder if people even know we have an MSI. Do a little better at this.
Hey, Shane, I can send you the MSI download statistics if you want.
Okay, that'd be good. See if
I
anybody's
shared them
down
with Marcus a while back.
We have that?
Yeah.
For the current release for 3001?
Not for the current release, but for the number of downloads over the past couple months. I'm sure I can do an SQL query to get the number of downloads for the release, though.
But we've only had the MSI up for a month.
Really? Has it only been for a month? Then I don't know. Oh, this is the exe downloads, excuse me.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. All right. Well, if you get time, Marcus, and you can work on that, that would be awesome.
Yeah, right after the Unicode problem.
Yes.
I need to stop and start a service, which regularly fails because Salt is unable to understand that the system is the service is running because that includes a German letter which it cannot decode. So as soon as a service is running, it's unable to detect that it's running. So this is a pretty stupid problem then.
That's this one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, before we go into the subject real quickly, 700 downloads of the MSI has occurred over the past few months.
It's good. I'm happy with that.
Cool.
I opened some pull requests regarding the MSI, and I think the first one would be most interesting. For reasons of my personal stupidity, the UAC is not triggered. So by simply clicking on the MSI, you're only getting you need elevated rights, but you're not being asked for them as usual. So the pull request 57 would reallow asking the user for elevated rights, because I only using hidden or silent installers. So I just vary at the end. This is checking for the privileges, which are, I can convey them on the command line. And if you click on them as a regular user, you would expect the UAC to come up, but this only tells you you don't have privileges, and it closes right away before asking you for the UAC privileges.
So removing that line gives you a prompt then?
Yep.
Cool.
It's easy to get approval here. That's nice.
When you don't have tests? Oh, the irresponsibility. I wouldn't even know how to write tests for this. Do you want to look at these? Are these all ready?
They're all ready, yeah.
All docs changes?
Yeah, I simply remove outdated docs, more or less.
Hey, Shane, this is why you're not the merge master for the salt repo, by the way.
I know. This is why DWAS yells at me.
So here I tried, this would be in fact coming back with the WMIC. So this is the mechanics how I would execute WMIC for the, or you could do that, Shane. Sure, you have a lot of free time. Here you see how you can execute WMIC instead of where. You could use WMIC, paste some GUIDs you want to filter from, and get a return. And this return is ignored, and I removed it from the. This was an exercise. So in the productive code, there should be no exercises, but this is how you would execute any command. So you would.
So you define it first, and then
Yeah.
you call it in the next line.
Yeah, this is even more complicated than necessary. You could, instead of having it in a variable, you can just Wix
Call it
quiet
here.
execute anything you would like.
And how do you look at the result?
By not ignoring it. So you would first
Oh.
change return ignore to what the documentation says, and you get it back somewhere and check, for example. Yeah. And then I'm not very sure how to do that. So this is where I would start.
Okay. Okay.
This is only taking away the exercise from the
code.
From the productive code. Yeah. In fact, I started to have a Git project where Chet and I also exchanged, and I would do that first in an exercise project. Oh, you remember 4 years ago, somebody requested this. I'm not sure you have noted that there are open issues on the MSI.
So this makes it so it doesn't show up in add remove programs?
Yes. If it's a system component, it's not shown in add remove programs. And all you have to do all these years, you just could have set that to 1 and you were done. But now I have even added it to the user interface and made it a little bit prettier because it was also not arranged very well. So now the graphical user interface also contains a checkbox.
So you can pass it from the command line.
Yep.
To hide it, and you can set it in the dialog box.
Yep. Do you think it's necessary in the dialog box?
What's the plan for upgrading the MSI?
Upgrading it for...
Well, version 2 comes out, version 3 comes out, version 4 of Salt comes out. How do people do an upgrade? So at the moment, you've got the exe doing an upgrade because you've got the Salt package thing that does an exe upgrade, but we don't have an MSI upgrade path, do we?
I think it does because it uses is it an upgrade code or a product code? And as long as we keep that code the same, then the MSI knows this is an upgrade.
Yeah, there's a code in the XML or I know there's a spot in the XML spot of the MSI, and there's probably a spot in the C# where you can put it.
Yeah,
I can find the name of that.
That would be the upgrade code, exactly.
There's a package code. There's package code and an upgrade code.
Yep, the upgrade code is the one which ties them all together.
Sorry, there's a package code, a product code, and an upgrade code. There's 3 codes.
Right, and the upgrade code is the overarching one. Because Microsoft Office 2010 new version it's the same upgrade code, stays the same, but it gets a new package or a new product. It's considered a new product, but it's part of the same overarching.
I reckon it's the product code. Well, it's either product code or upgrade code, one of those two.
It's confusing. When I first looked at it, I thought, oh, it's got to be the product code, but it's not. It's the upgrade code. The upgrade code is the one that stays the same. The products change, but it's still like the same suite of products follow the same upgrade code.
That's correct. And I found it also confusing when I...
Yeah, MSI is such a complicated beast, man.
Yeah, I can understand why they do not continue.
Okay. Those are all in, Marcus. Thanks for that.
Yeah, this was... Okay. I had a training on the MSI, so this is what I got from looking at the code from a perspective of the MSI, and I closed, or you can now close one of the issues regarding the MSI if you like so. This would be the one, yeah.
Let's merge. Okay, cool. All right, let's go back to our agenda here. Chad, did you want to talk about PowerShell and coding a little bit?
Yes, I do. So Marcus and I already had this discussion a little bit, but I'd like to propose that we switch the default of the power encoding to UTF-8 because there was a change where we forced encode it to just support American ASCII and some German characters here and there, and that was done because of Python 2 and the way they encode and decode strings from module to module, and that's not needed anymore. And having it being in the current mode that it is right now is more harmful to Salt than it being helpful. And I have two proposals on how we should do the change.
Is this what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yep. So at the time, they forced it to that encoding. So when in Python 2, when they went to look at the characters and that, it was in the proper encoding rather than it changing encoding depending on what your language was. And that was problematic where they didn't fully fix the problem, where they just figured out what was the encoding of the PowerShell. They just changed it to a default one. And that's bad.
So for console stuff to work properly, you need Python 3.6, I think it was. I put in that ticket once. The top of my head, that's when they fixed the console doing Unicode.
They fixed a lot of things in 3.7 for that. And I think you did a lot of that research on that too.
Yeah, I can't remember. It was the 3.6 or 3.7. I can't remember which one. And then after that, the characters work properly. Because otherwise, you run salt call on the command prompt and it's garbage.
Anyway, you saw this pull request, Chad, right?
That was Marcus showed me that one. Oh, but yes, I have seen that pull request too, where I put my suggestions down below. That was one of my solutions, but I theorized that that will work only if you restart Salt afterwards, because if I remember, Windows does not re-inherit encoding. Like once the process starts, that encoding is stuck with that for life. So we might have to find a way to change the encoding before Salt starts, or find a more graceful way, which I might have to go into C or something. I don't know. I haven't had time looking into it with this point release.
Okay, so here's the issue with this. There was a reason why they set this code page the way they did. And it's because when you launch something from a command line in Windows, it returns a result. And then in Salt, we parse that result. We're expecting it to say certain things. And if it's on 437, it returns English. If it's on a different code page, it's going to return a different language. And then it's going to break code in other places. So we can't just set it to Unicode and be done. That's why I made this optional and had it default to 437, so we don't break existing code that's written in other execution modules.
Well, then why can't we just change the PowerShell default language when Salt runs? So that is a fair point there.
Actually, it's not true. If I have a German, or if you have a German Windows, setting the code page to 437 does not change the language of the return. You still would get Datenträger instead of volume, and Datenträger would be still German, even if you set it to code page 437. What you may, you cannot change the locale on the fly before booting the machine, probably, or at least the user, log out the user. So changing the code page would leave a German talking Windows still talk in German, but it would garble even more.
Okay. So just removing that, does that fix it?
No, it doesn't.
Does it?
It would go into the right direction. 437 really.
Do we need to set the code page at the beginning, like Chad's suggesting, or can we just remove this?
Both. You need to remove it here, and as Chad suggested, set it somewhere.
And a bug with
we
that
don't know
line.
where that is.
Yeah, so it'd be at the salt entry point. It would be in all the starts. So like the moment we start the minion, it would be the first thing we check and do. We'd have to do a pretty brutal injection. It would have to be on system start.
Would it happen here?
Yes, it would
yes.
happen there.
Yeah.
Like we pass it as a variable here?
Yes.
No, you would do it
here. Command line? This is so Python accepts a switch that lets you set the
No, you would
page?
do it in the bat file, or you would do it in the Python source code of where the minion and master would start up. Which for some reason, I'm blanking on that location.
If you do it in the batch file, I tried it in the batch file and it works.
Yeah.
So what did you pass?
65001, which is.
But
We tried.
There's a switch for it, right?
We tried this a long time ago, and it didn't work well. And that's because Python was broken on the console. So until we're up to 365, it's no point doing it.
Yeah, of course you would have a selection. It's only on the newest Python which can be fixed. The old Python is broken, and I would not even try to make it run.
So 3001 ships with Python 3.7 now.
Yeah.
So we should be able to do this moving forward.
I would not try to I would not try to fix older than 3.7. They are lost. But unfortunately with setting the code page again and again, and without setting the correct code page, it doesn't even work with Python 3.7. So currently we have we can try to fix it, but only in 3.7, and we need to agree to fix and need to agree how to fix them.
There's also a bug with the current way we change the code page. It doesn't take effect until the next salt call, because we do the code page change on the same execution line. We'd have to actually call the CMD first. We'd have to change the code page, then call that same function again with what we were actually trying to run. Just to note that out.
Of course. Well, this code has been here for a long time.
Yep.
I wonder if it wasn't doing what they thought it was doing. Well, we can change it and see how the tests run, see if anything fails.
I just got done with my last 3.101 bug, and this is the next one assigned to me. So I'll work on it today, Shane, if you want me to.
Okay. Are you going to push to the that same PR I was working on, or how you gonna?
I can push directly to it. I was going to play with it. I was going to actually open up a couple because I got a couple solutions and rather than do one at a time, I was going to probably open up 2 or 3 and try out multiple solutions to see if we get an answer. And then the test that you put in there, Shane, it gives back a false positive. We'd have to test on. We'd have to test on a German machine or other things. I found out that when you're running on an American, PowerShell has it's a little weird.
I think I
can't find the right words right now.
I think I was trying to mock it because I didn't want to have to set up a German box. No, I ran a Datenträger.
Yeah, and on American machines, it's a false positive. It still works.
It always works. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Well, setting a German machine should be not more complicated. Yes. In fact, no. In fact you need to set it up right away. It's very, very hard wired deep into Windows. It's silly how once set up, you cannot change the response from the system. You need to set it up in the right locale before you can be sure that Windows responds with that language.
So another concern that I have is I don't know if we can get the testing people to approve having a German Windows machine or a French. I'd prefer to do French because French has a lot more encoding errors than German from what I've discovered working on it. I can produce a lot more encoding errors in my French machines than German.
I'm happy with the French machine.
It's also, someone's going to be able to read the language to be able to change things.
Yeah. Why don't we just go Chinese, bro?
We could go Chinese, and that would be probably the ultimate task.
I think Chinese is going to be a lot bigger issue than just
I haven't even tried a Chinese box.
Because it's a whole, I don't think 6501 supports all the Chinese characters.
I believe it does, but I could be wrong.
It supports enough. If it doesn't, yeah, I don't think there's much choice.
I like the solution that that Marcus had, though, of not hard crashing if it finds a Unicode error and having it catch that and either replace it with an underscore or something, but not crashing a service restart. You know what I mean?
Yeah. In fact, I looked into decode, and there are 3 options. When you have a byte string, this is only Python 3, of course. If you have a string of bytes, or not a string of bytes, if you have an array of bytes and you want to decode them to anything, for example, ASCII or UTF-8 or whatever, there are 3 options. Hard crash, if it's a default, and I think that's not ideal for Sol. You could have it replace it with the numbers being backslash and any number of strings, and this is much softer. So, and I think when I looked at it, I think that Salt is using the default encoding, which means hard crash. So we could change that from it would be a parameter, like the crash mode would be either hard. If it's missing, then it's a hard crash mode. So that's a really small change, and yeah, the Python default is not very useful here. I have not documented that somewhere yet. I would need to look it up again.
Okay.
This is an older one. This is still Python Python 2, by the way.
Oh, this one is?
This is still Python 2. And I think I will be one of the very few people in the world who use salt on a localized machine, because I suspect even my German salt user people are running against English machines on their servers, because it's it's much easier to run it on all the software behaves better. Yeah, and this is some quirks I've done years ago. This is a year ago. So I'm struggling already a long time. So
You've been working on this for a long time.
Yeah, and before I release the next version into my company, I need to fix that. So this is why I'm not doing anything else except these very easy steps I showed to you.
Okay.
This is the most recent report. And Datenträger is really volume, so it comes up as soon as you do a dir.
Right. And you linked it to this one. You have a PR for it?
No.
Oh, that's the one I was working on. Okay.
So just to clarify, when I go to work on this, we should add a hard crash mode equals false type thing, where rather than it hard crashing, we just replace all the invalid characters with question marks or something like that. And we should add the mode where they can change the page code, but don't do that on startup. Or are we still planning to do startup changing it to UTF-8?
My opinion is that salt should be UTF-8 internal.
Yeah, from 3.7 onwards, it should start up with 65001. I don't know how to do that for the service. Somehow we can need the service to do that as well.
Yeah, that can be added to the nullsoft script.
Well, so there's one option where I think it's not too invasive, where we have to go through the MSI startup and all those stuff and make sure we add that to scripts, where I think there is a way for us to change it to UTF-8 while the process is active. I just have to test it. And then that should just be put in one place of salt, and we should be good for every single product that we distribute. And then there's the more evasive one where it's in the batch file, and that's where we have to go through every single service and how we start it up and manually fix it that way.
There's only one service on Windows that gets created, and that's right here in the nullsoft script. If you're going to add it to whatever you end up adding to the batch file, you come and add it here.
Okay.
Basically
that starts the Python up straight away. I mean, it might not need it. I don't know. Maybe it's just the batch script that needs it because you're on the console. Because I assume it writes UTF-8 files. Well, all the logs will be UTF-8.
Yeah, Python defaults to UTF-8 and pretty much everything. It's just getting the PowerShell or shell to default to what we want it to default to, or change it.
When you call it from the console, when you call it from the service, it won't be UTF-8.
It's not Python which is the problem. It's Windows which tries to respond, or when Windows responds, it does it reflecting the code page. So it's not only Python which we must take care of, but even if Python can decode anything, we must tell Windows that we would like to have our response in UTF-8. And it does not pay attention to a Python process. It only pays attention to the code page. So I wouldn't call it more evasive. We must be aware that Windows is talking in an encoding, and it's not Unicode by default. Even if Windows can talk to you with UTF-8, at some point in time, we must tell Windows to please reply in UTF-8.
Yep. Yeah, so repeating what Marcus says, it's when we talk to PowerShell, it's not returning the right encoding, and it's trying to get PowerShell or the command prompt to switch encoding.
It's regularly talking about files. Python is very concerned with reading and encoding files. The use case of having the output of a command or PowerShell is not discussed. I tried the Python UTF-8, so along with my, or with it, I documented that at your pull request, Shane, and it's not working because Python UTF-8 is only treating the way how it's reading files, not how the command is responding in an encoding. For Python, the response is just bytes, and this is already too late. We must have told Windows before calling it in which encoding it does.
Okay, so this only works with the files after the fact, but we need it before. We need to have everything.
Yep. So the whole UTF-8 mode, I looked at it. In my eyes, we cannot use it, or it's just not invasive enough.
Does anybody know if there's a command line switch or what it is? I haven't.
Yeah, so I know the command line switch and everything. I just got to thoroughly test it out to make sure that the running processes also inherit. So the PowerShell is a little funny. The code page is actually for the process that's currently running. So like if you change the code page and the process is still running, it's a little tricky to get that process to actually switch the code page too. So it's like you got two processes, the PowerShell will switch the code page depending on which one's getting a result and which one's not, depending on when that process starts up.
I've posted a link. So basically what it's saying in this link is that if you call chcp within Python, you can change the code page.
Somewhat. It doesn't, there's a core fundamental thing that doesn't get changed. And plus that line is flawed because you can't change the code page and run the command on the same line. That code page change will only take effect on the next call. But which you can see in Marcus's example and that GitHub reason, he showed that the first time you run it, it doesn't take effect. But I theorized that it's not just that, it's because he ran salt call, that process finished. And when he ran salt call again, a new process started up and then inherited the code page, the new code page changed. I'm sorry if I'm not explaining myself properly here.
No, I'm just saying when the service starts up, it could call chcp.
Yeah,
when the service,
and
Windows service starts up.
Yeah, that's possible.
My concern is when the service starts up, the process is already made, right? Salt is already running, correct?
Yeah, true, but Python is going to still do UTF-8 as far as it's concerned.
Yeah, Python's still going to do UTF-8, but once that Python process is running, I'm saying it's too late. It's not going to change code pages.
No, but anything new will. If you call Python.
Anything new will.
Yeah.
Because once that process ends and you start up a new process, it will talk to PowerShell, say, what's your code page, and then change. The code page is tied to the process and to the PowerShell. So when the PowerShell is talking to multiple processes, it'll go, oh, this one's UTF-8, and then return a UTF-8 response for it.
So the service starts up, the Python service starts up for Salt, right? Minion.
Yeah.
It calls chcp 6501 just as it starts, right? And then the whole code page is changed for anything else that it starts after that. So whether it be PowerShell or any other command, it'll be UTF-8.
Talking about putting it in the actual Minion starting code, the loader,
The Salt, whatever is the script that starts
Minion.py, probably.
Yeah.
Starts the Minion service, whatever.
There you go. Well, we'll have to test things and find out. but I have my doubts that once the Python process is running, I think we're too late.
It could be working, but it seems the wrong direction. So you could talk from the Python process back to the shell which opened Python to change something. This seems to me the wrong direction. It could work, but I would call Python from a shell which is already UTF-8 and without the need of talking back to the shell which called Python originally. So we could do that, or be even like, I don't know, make the information flow. This seems to me like not the natural way to do.
It's Windows.
The whole thing's not natural.
Yeah, well, in the end, I'm happy if it works. So this would be a one line, whether it's a one line here or a one line when the minion starts up. Either way, I haven't seen that. Can you send me the link? I will try that out. Or if you can tell me how I can pull your or chats. How can I get git pull and the branch of yours? Then I need to look that up in
Yeah, so what you do is you would go to my git fork and you would copy it, and then you would add it to your remotes, and then you can fetch from it, and then you can pull it down.
Oh, I see. Okay, put it to my remotes. That is enough. And Shane, I liked where you just edit the OS system. Where was it? In the minion? Which file was that?
Minion.py. I don't know if this would work, but
that would also output to your PowerShell too, which might make people mad.
It would what?
That would show up to your shell. That os.system has output. Sorry,
we changed it to something else that
yeah
like
we can just
sysexec or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm getting into the minor details. Forgive me.
Yeah, or whatever it is, I can't remember.
Minion base, class minion base. Never looked at that. Anyhow, I think UTF-8 is a good basis for a lot of languages like French and German. Chinese is a much longer discussion. I don't know whether you have people being able to read Chinese. I'm not. But anyhow, if that works, this would be a major relief for me.
So we may need to do it inside the minion code. I'm not sure the batch file is going to work. I mean, the batch file will work, but I don't think it will work here. I don't see a way to register this service.
No, we need to do it in the service, and we need to do it in the and the batch files. Well, you just do it. You do it in the service like you did already. Not there. Don't touch that. You do it in the service what you did, and then chuck it in all the batch files as well. Just leave that in. Well, a better version of that.
Well, sure, but do you need it in the batch files if it's done here?
Because you use salt call. Well, either that you've got to put it in all the scripts. It's either that.
Oh, I see. So that it turns the shell into a Unicode.
Yeah, because you've got salt call to deal with as well.
Okay.
The only problem with it, the only downside of this is when you run salt call, it will if you run command prompt, then you run salt call, then that person's command prompt is from then on out UTF-8 forever amen until they exit the command prompt.
Oh, you know what? I did submit a PR that ran the command, changed code page, ran all this, and then changed the code page back.
Yeah, which we don't really want to do, but yeah. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, something like that. A long time ago, pre it actually having half a chance of working.
We were trying to fix this back 3 or 4 years ago, and we tried it, and it didn't work. It broke a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, and that's because Python wasn't ready.
Yeah.
So it detected the current code page, set a variable, changed it, ran the salt call, and then changed the code page back just before it. exited.
I tried that. Change in the code page works perfectly. For me personally, if salt call would change my code page, wouldn't really matter. For me, I don't see a reason why to change it back. I think the reason why it didn't work, as you said, was Python was not ready.
Yeah, I revert that PR. I actually had it in.
Yeah,
We ended up having to revert
get
it.
back to it and put it
Oh,
back
take,
in.
Yep, take two.
Take two, yeah.
Now we're ready. Okay, I remember doing that a long time ago.
By the way, is a Salt Master running Python 3? Should it be capable to run a Python 2 minion?
Yeah, the version of the minion doesn't matter
Okay.
because it's running over the 0MQ and yeah, I wonder, but yeah, translating the characters, I wonder if it would, coming from a Windows 2 minion to a Python 2 minion to a Python 3 master.
Have you tried that?
Actually, it'd probably be worse going from a Python 3 minion to a Python 2 master. That's where you might.
That would have been fixed already, wouldn't it? Because we've had the Unicode issue for a long time. Like, they would have converted all the stuff. All the messaging between minions and masters should be all Unicode now.
But I guess I'm talking about when the master dumps the data to the console. I think by then Windows has already messed it up and it sends question marks.
It's probably never worked properly.
Well, we'll probably find out when we go through all this. This may be a deeper hole than we realized. But... Okay. So Chad is going to work on this. Chad and Marcus.
Also got a hold of Bryce, and I'm talking to him how hard it would be to add a French Windows test box to Salt. Sorry to cut you off, Shane.
Oh, you're good. Console, service.
Yeah. Well, what about the master?
We don't support the master right now for Windows, but it would be good to probably add it, the code page change to it. So in the future, if we ever do, we don't forget about that.
Okay. All right. Well, let's set this as a goal for magnesium. Fix the Unicode issues. That's a goal we have for magnesium.
It will be my personal goal for the next release, which is only waiting for that. So I can then give you my experience from my rollout.
Okay.
So this is a benefit for you, and at the same time, I'm a little wondering how all the French and other non-English speaking users are not complaining. But Chad mentioned that I'm the only one who complains, which makes me feel very exclusive. I'm a very exclusive club, but
I've only had one other person complained about a encoding error, and he was French.
yeah.
There's been a few Chinese people or whatever, or Japanese people on the GitHub saying stuff.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of Unicode issues come in on Windows. It's been a long-standing issue.
Okay, so Chad, I'm happy that we have our go.
Yeah, no, I'm happy about it too, and I'm excited, and I'm seeing if our people running our CII boxes and that can get a French one here running for us here soon, so we can hopefully correct more UTF encoding errors here in the future.
I wouldn't be surprised if you have to build it and then they will implement it in the CI/CD.
Probably. They're talking about it right now. So
Okay.
this is
All right.
probably a next month meeting.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll see what headway you guys can make this month and see where we're at next month.
Perfect.
We're at an hour, so I want to thank you guys for coming to the meeting. This was good. Glad you can complain all you want, Marcus, because you're about the only guy that shows up for the Windows working group for the last 6 months. Damon started coming. That's nice to have you, Damon. And I appreciate you taking the time to join us. And you've definitely had a lot of experience with the Unicode.
Damon, you're also from SoftStack or not?
No.
Now, which part of dialect is that? I have a little difficulty to understand you, but this is because my next holidays will be to Canada, or where do you come from?
I'm an Aussie.
Down under.
Oh, I see. I've never been there. That's my problem. My fault.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, appreciate everybody. We'll talk next month. We're also just, if anybody's interested in taking over the Windows working group, it's supposed to change every release. We're supposed to get a Windows working group captain, a new one, every time we do a release. So it's like a 3 or 4 month stint. If anybody's interested, I would love to be replaced.
What was it? I was going to ask one question. What happened with changing the default for the database refresh for the package database?
Why did we change it?
Yeah, after 7 days.
Well, because how often are you updating your repo, your Win repo?
I suppose the risk is that I suppose the reason why it was set to say less than a day was so that when people run the command, they get the latest information about the. So if someone updates if you're working in a team and there's 5 or 6 people in the team, someone might not be aware that someone's actually updated the files or the package databases. So for example, they've added Firefox version 70, and then someone says, right, I'm going to go and do a package install by hand across all the fleet. And some of them will get 69 and some of them will get 70, because some of them will be older. The ones older than 7 days will refresh the database and get version 70, and the ones younger than 7 days will get version 69.
So can't we just pass a refresh equals true to force that?
True, but people don't know to do that. That's why it was set to about less than a day to sort of catch all that sort of stuff.
Well, because usually it wasn't updated or changed, and it was refreshing the entire thing every 6 hours when somebody. So it's every time you did a package, every time you did a package.install, then it would take forever to refresh the database. It's just so slow.
But remember, high states force a refresh anyway. So if you're using your normal high state stuff to apply stuff, it will do the database refresh unless it's within 30 minutes. So that's the min setting. So the min setting says, I'm going to, if I did a high state in the last 30 minutes, I'm going to ignore it and just assume that you haven't changed the package database. So if you do 2 high states in a row, if you did the first high state will be slow, the next high state will be faster because it's already refreshed the database. Yeah. So there's 2, that's what the min does anyway. The min, because that was the problem with the high state as well. It was forcing a refresh every time.
Right. Maybe we need to have a meeting.
I'm just concerned that what will happen is, like, if people are running a mixture of high state on certain Windows boxes and other Windows boxes, some of them will be up to date, some of them won't be up to date. And so someone runs salt install without the refresh, or even package list, right? They'll run package list, and some of them will refresh and others won't refresh because of the 7 day. So you get where they're not consistent anymore. Like if it was 6 hours or 8 hours or 10 hours, you would come in the next day and it would be consistently slow for everything the first time you ran it, and then be fast consistently for everything.
So didn't we make it we made it a config option though, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're a shop that's updating your files all the time, then maybe you ought to set that to a 6 hour.
Yeah.
But I don't know how many people are. The argument then is everybody updating their Win repo all the time? Are they always?
Well, no, but you're missing the timestamp on the box, right? So the package refresh will be done at different times on different boxes, right? So you might have a third of the fleet that did it a day ago, another third that did it 5 days ago, and another third that did it 15 days ago. And then you run the command like list package databases, and then a third of them will be slow responding back because they've got to refresh the package database. And then a person will say, well, why was that third slow and the other 2/3 fast? You get the whole thing stops being consistent.
Because they're within the 7-day window.
Yeah. So that was one of the benefits of being less than a day, is because everything was slow. If you get what I mean, it was consistently slow versus something.
Well, you know what? Maybe the issue isn't how often we refresh it. Maybe the issue is how slow it is.
Well, I wrote
that up.
I wrote a paper once on, and I think it might have been an email because I can't find an issue for it, and that the salt protocol needs to be changed. You know how we get a list of all the files from the salt master. Well, the only thing you get back is the file name and a checksum. You can't work out what's changed. It's not like you can't do a sort of like an rsync type thing. And that's one of the reasons why it's slow. That's one of the reasons why we have to delete everything, because we can't, and copy it all down again, because we can't do it like an rsync thing to say what's up there and what's here and compare the two and then sync it. And that's why it's so slow. If we could do rsync over the salt protocol, it would be a lot better. But that means changing the salt protocol to have a lot more data in it, like, you know, the size of the file and the timestamps, and or an e tag. You know how like when you fetch a web page, it has an e tag, for example.
Yeah, I think you use
and being able to and being able to detect that files have been deleted. You know, that file doesn't exist there, but that file exists. I need to delete that file. You know.
So is that something we could add to the?
Well, no, it's a bigger change because it changes everything. It introduces an incompatible protocol in an upgrade.
So it uses salt.cp to copy or salt.cache, file.cache.
Yeah, but it can't be smart.
Is there file.rsync?
No, there was. But it can't be smart because there's not enough data for it to be smart about. It can't get enough data off the master to be smart about what it can do and what it can't do. I think that's where it is. I don't think there's any chart.
So I think we talked about like zipping it up and sending down a single zip file, because I think it's the file.cache protocol itself that does each file one at a time.
It does it does a directory listing. Effectively does a recursive directory listing of the salt master, and then
it pulls each file down one at a time. It doesn't just
not sure.
So I think there's time setting up the connection, grabbing the file, pull it down. I think there's a lot of overhead.
But you get what I'm trying to say. It's just the protocol doesn't support. You couldn't write an rsync because the protocol for getting information out of the salt master doesn't support the data you need to do it. Like you can't do a recursive directory listing of the salt, because it actually caches it too. If you do a directory listing followed by another directory listing, the salt master actually caches it for a short amount of time, right? Okay. But if you do a directory listing with a pattern, it doesn't cache it.
It doesn't cache the pattern. No,
it doesn't cache the result because it's got a pattern in it. Something like that. I had a good look at it, and if we could speed up all that sort of directory listing type stuff on the salt master and provide more information across, it would speed things up a lot.
So what if we zipped all the SLS files up and we transferred one file to the minion and unzipped them in a directory and then did like a rsync from that directory? Well,
you couldn't do that because master doesn't support zipping the stuff up.
No, but part of the Win repo, maybe we would add back the gen repo and it would
No, I don't think we're going to do
create the
that.
zip, create the zip file.
No.
Or,
If we
or
make
do
it,
it, or do
we
it as
just-
a part of the Win repo, the salt, the Win repo.
we just need to
update
raise
Git
it.
repos.
raise a SEP to make the file transfer stuff smarter.
Okay.
That's what I think we need. Sit down and look at how we can make the SEP, write a SEP to make the file transfer stuff faster, smarter.
Yeah.
Because look, there was someone raised the issue the other day. So they're talking about the people were changing the map files, like they're changing the way formulas are written, and they're talking about using map files. And they were saying that the map files were out of date or something like that, and so it was doing the wrong thing on the minion. Yeah. It's not just our stuff. There's other stuff as well.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, I'm only seeing a cache, dir, cache file, cache master, local file. I don't sit there. It'd be awesome to set up some sort of rsync.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just talking about the aspects of the sync, if you know what I mean. Something that's a bit smarter. It can work out, I've already got this file that checks some matches, or do directory listings in particular directories and say, okay, these are all the files, you know, so. But as I said, I don't think it caches, it only caches it if you do a full listing. It doesn't cache it if you do a pattern-based listing on the master.
And you're
This
talking
would
about
not be a change restricted to Windows. This
no,
would be.
this would be. It would,
No,
it would benefit everybody, I think.
Yeah, make everything a bit faster.
So I think it should be a totally new function in the CP file. If it's even possible over 0MQ or however.
Well, it's possible, but it's the salt master. As I said, the salt master. If you do there's a command to do a directory listing on this. There's a command from the client, the minion, to do a directory listing on the salt master, and it doesn't provide enough info. It'll just give you a list of files. It won't give you the checksums and other stuff that you need.
Client.file list.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the SEP would be good for that. And that'd probably be something the core would look at. Okay. Well, again, thank you guys for coming. I ought to put that in the notes. Let me put that in the notes real quick.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. I think Shane already left. So Shane, Chad already left.
Chad left. Yeah.
Shane, Damon, nice to talk to you. Tommy was a bit quiet. See you next.
The silent observer.
Yeah. He doesn't look like he must be a photo because he's not moving.
Yeah.
All right. Cheers.
Well, thank you guys.
Cheers.
Thank you. See you next
Bye-bye.
month.